Alrighty, everybody. Welcome in. No such time to me. So I just want to say I finished out part two of my comic book. So if you can check it out, it just puts some things that happened to me in my experiences through God and Jesus Christ into perspective where you guys can see them. Um, I made that because I wanted to have a long running story. I don't know. It felt like something I wanted to do, and so I ended up putting it all together and building it. It finished part two off today. It's gonna continue. I was working on part three a little bit before I even came in here because they sometimes now from here on out that one's probably gonna be my longest one. But from here on out, I don't know how many of these I'm gonna do. I don't know if I'm gonna continue to do them consistently. I might find a point where I take a few weeks off from actually doing anything and then start up again because I do want to continue this one. The last one I did was a lot different. They're way different stories. But like this one here is more related to biblical stuff than it is related to anything else. It's based around like a lot of the stuff that's going on in today's world. So if you haven't yet to check it out, I'll show you guys where it is later on. You guys can go there and check it out yourself. It's I like it. I like the story I did. I think I don't know how many people actually. I mean, 8 looked at it so far. I don't know how many people are actually checking it out. Unfortunately, you can only get a little bit of a reach when you're me because you're not like some big time YouTuber. There's people bigger than me that have a heck of a reach. And again, I'm not doing this for my own fame and fortune. I'm doing this to get people to come into the Bible. And if I can put a comic book out there and get you guys into reading the Bible, well, that was one of my other goals. So I'm kind of glad I'm able to do that. On top of it, it just gives you an example of stuff I've experienced along the way through Jesus Christ. So, yep. So let's get into it. We're reading the rest of First Chronicles now. So let's get this out of the way. The musicians, chapter 25. David, together with the commanders of the army, set apart some of the sons of Asaph, Heman, and Jothan for the ministry of prophesying, accompanied by the harps, lyres, and cymbals. Here's a list of the men who performed this service. From the sons of Asaph, Zorach, Joseph, Nathaniah, and Asarlah, the son of Asaph, were under the supervision of Asaph, who prophesied under the king's supervision. As for Judithan, from his sons, Gilead, Zerah, Josiah, Shemi, and Hashabah, the Mattithatai, man, 6 in all, under the supervision of their father, Judithan, who prophesied using the harp in thanking and praising the Lord. As for Heman, from his sons, Boakai, Mattanai, Uzel, Shobel, and Jeremoth, Hanani, Hanani, and Hanana, Ethalau, Gadalatai, and Romamet, Ezer, Joshbekah, Shema, Melahoth, Hother, and Meshahoth. All of these were sons of Haman, the king's seers. They were given him through promise of God to exalt him. God gave Haman 14 sons and 3 daughters, All these men were under the supervision of their father for music of the temple of the Lord, with cymbals, lyres, and harps. For the minister at the house of God, Asaph, Jeduthun, and Heman were under the supervision of God, of the king, along with their relatives, all of their trained and skilled in music for the Lord. They numbered 288, young and old alike. Teacher as well as student cast lots for their duties. The first lot, which was for Asaph, fell to Joseph, his son and relatives. Second, Gedaliah, him and his relatives and sons. Third, Zorach, his sons and relatives. Fourth, Izir, his sons and relatives. Fifth, Nethaniah, his sons and relatives. Sixth, Boakai, his sons and relatives. Seventh, Jesharel, his sons and relatives. The eighth, Jeshua, his sons and relatives. The ninth, Metani, his sons and relatives. The 10th, Shemai, his sons and relatives. The 11th, Azarel, his sons and relatives. 12th, Hashabiah, his sons and relatives. 13th, Shebel, his sons and relatives. 14th, Metaniah, his sons and relatives. 14th, Jeremoth, his sons and relatives. 16th, Hanani, his sons and relatives. So they're all in formations of 12, by the way. 17th, Josh Kashiah, his sons and relatives, 12. 18, Hanani, his sons and relatives, 12. The 19th, Amelahith, his sons and relatives, 12. The 12th, Eliath, his sons and relatives, 12. The 21st, Horeth, his sons and relatives, 12. The 22nd of Gileadi, his sons and relatives, 12. The 23rd, Mazahath, his sons and relatives, 12. The 24th of the Ramite, Azer, his sons and relatives, 12. All right, so now we're on to chapter 26, the gatekeepers. The division of gatekeepers from Korath to Meshaliah, son of Kor, one of his sons of Asaph. Meshaliah had sons, Zechariah the firstborn, Jeiel the second, Zabadi the third, Jethaniel the fourth, Elam the fifth, Johanna the sixth, Eliana the seventh. Obed Edom also had sons, Sheshemiah the firstborn, Jozabad the second, Joah the third, Sakar the fourth, Nathaniel the fifth, Amiel the sixth, Issachar the seventh, Palathai the eighth. For God had blessed Obed Edom. Obed Edom's sons Sheshemiah also had sons who were leaders in their first father family because they were very capable men. The men of Ashariah, Othan, Raphiah, Obed, and Elazbad, his relatives Elah and Shemek, were also able men. All these were descendants of Obed Edom, and they were sons and relatives. And their sons and relatives were capable men with strength to do work. Descendants of Obed Edom, 62 in all, Meshalema and his sons and relatives, who were able men, 18 in all. Hosha, the Mamorite, and his sons, Shemrai, the first, although he was not firstborn. His father had appointed him the first Hilkiah, the second Tabali, the third Zechariah, the fourth the son and the relative of Hosha, were 13 in all. These divisions of gatekeepers, through their duties and had through their leaders, had duties of administering in the temple of the Lord, just as the relatives had lots, were cast for each gate according to their families, young and old alike. The lot of East Gate fell to Shemalai. Then lots were cast for his sons, Zechariah, a wise counselor, and the lot of North Gate fell to him. The lot of their South Gate fell to Obed Edom, and the lot of the storehouse fell to his son. The lots of the West Gate and Sheleketh Gate on the upper road fell to Shippim and Hosha. Guard was alongside of guard. There were 6 Levites a day on east, 4 a day on the north, 4 a day on the south, and 2 at a time at the storehouse. As for the court to the west, there were 4 at the road and 2 at the court itself. These were the divisions of the gatekeepers, who were descendants of Kor and Mamre. Sorry. All right. The treasurer of the other officials. The fellow Levites were in charge of the treasuries of the house of God and the treasuries of the dedicated things. For the dedicated things, the descendants of Ladan, who were Gershonites through Ladan, and who were heads of the family belonging to Ladan and the Gershonites, and Jelili, the son of Jelili, Zemeth, and his brother Joel, were in charge of the treasuries of the temple of the Lord. From the Amorites to the Azarites, the Hebronites, and the Uzzielites, Shabal, a descendant of Gershom, son of Moses, was the official in charge of the treasuries. His relatives through Eleazar, Rabbi, his son, and Jesahiah, his son, Joram, his son, Zikr, his son, and Sholomith, his son. Sholomith and his relatives were in charge of all the treasuries for the things dedicated by the king David, by the head of the families, who were the commanders of thousands and commanders of hundreds, and by the other army commanders, who were the plunder. Some of the plunder taken in battle, they dedicated for the repair of the temple for the Lord, and everything dedicated to Samuel the seer, and by Saul, son of Kesh, Abner, son of Ner, and Joab, son of Zerah, and all the other dedicated things were in the care of Shelomith and his relatives. From the Izarites, Kenani and his sons were assigned duties away from the temple as officials and judges over Israel. Oh, thank you. I appreciate that, Alex Q. Oh, yeah. I'm sorry. It's just one of those things that like I pick the timing of day sometimes. Oh, thank you. I can't like I stream for like an hour to read these chapters, and then that's really about it. I mean, I talk about some things here, but thank you for stopping in. I'm glad you did it. I'm glad people are actually watching these. I know it's rare. I know like after I'm out of here, I see my views go up a little bit, and I know it's a small crowd, but hey, it's gonna grow eventually. So from the Hebronites to the Ashabai and his relatives, 1,700 able men were responsible for in Israel west of the Jordan for all the work of the Lord and the king's service. As for the Hebronites, Jerai was their chief, according to the genealogical record of their families. In the fourth year of David's reign, 40th year of David's reign, a search was made in the record, and a capable man among the Hebronites were found at Jazer in Gilead. Jerah and 2,700 relatives who were able men and heads of families, and King David put them in charge of the Reubenites, the Gadites, and the half tribes of Manasseh, for every matter pertaining to God and for the affairs of the king. All right. So as you can see, this describes the kingdom as it was back then. How the musicians, there were like 12 from each relative related to each name I mentioned for the musicians. And then the gatekeepers, they mentioned how they all worked and how the kingdom just worked back then when they could be thank you, Alex. So it just describes the transition of how many people were helping David and Solomon at the time. And this all happened in the era of like, so remember how like at the beginning of Kings 1, it was talking about like how Saul was running the kingdom, and then it transitioned over to David because Saul gave over the kingdom to David. Well, this is an explanation of how the kingdom was ran at that exact time. So it's like a history lesson of that time period of what was going on with David and Saul and David, of course, which is pretty cool in my opinion. It's something, it is like a backstory to things, like you see in most shows, but like, you know, it I don't think the Bible has many backstories. I think this is like, as far as I know, I think this is like the only backstory to the kingdom and all that at that time. So that could be what we're all reading here, just the backstory of how everything worked at the time and what was going on. Because it goes over David again, and it goes over Saul a few times here. So it's warm here. I don't know if it's because I'm wearing this hat. This hat has like, I've been wearing this all evening, but like all this technology around me, it actually gets really warm. So, all right. Army division. Chapter 27. This is a list of the Israelites, heads of the family, commanders of the thousands and commanders of hundreds, and their officers, who served the king in all that concerned the army division, that were on duty month by month throughout the year. Each division consisted of 24,000 men. In charge of the first division for the first month, Joshabim, son of Zadabel, Zabdal, sorry. There were 24,000 men in his division. He was a descendant of Perez and chief of all the army's officers for the first month. In charge of the division for the second month was Dobai, and the Oahite Malakoth was the leader of his division. There were 24,000 men in his division. The third army commander for the third month was Benaiah, son of Joadad, the priest. He was the chief, and there were 24,000 men in his division. This was the Benaiah, who was a mighty warrior among the... Too far, pages are sticking together. All right. 30 and was over the 30. His son Azimabad was in charge of his division. The fourth, for the fourth month, was Asahel, the brother of Joab, his son of Zebediah, was his successor. There were 24,000 men in his division. The fifth, for the fifth month, was commander of Shemhoth, an Azarite. There were 24,000 men in his division. The sixth, for the sixth month, was Ira, the son of Isca, and Tekohite. There were 24,000 men in his division. The seventh of the seventh month was Helza, Pelonite, the Ephraimite. There were 24,000 men in his division. The eighth, for the eighth month, was Sibbecai, the Hushathite, and the Zerahite. There were 24,000 men in his division. The ninth of the ninth month was Abazir, the Anathite, a Benjamite. There were 24,000 men in his division. The tenth month, for the tenth month, the Mahara, the Nephothite, and the Zerahite were 24,000 men in his division. The 11th, for the 11th month, was the Benaiah, the Parathite, the Ephraimite. There were 24,000 men in his division. The 12th, for the 12th month, was the Hiladad, the Nephatite, from the family of the Othniel, were 24,000 men in his division. Warm. Leaders of the tribes. The leaders of the tribes of Israel over the Reubenites: Eleazar, son of Kezari, over the Somanites; the Shephathites, son of Mecca, over Levi; Sheshabai, son of Kemuel, over Aaron Zodak; over Judah, Elihu, a brother of David; over Issachar, Omri, son of Mecca; over Zebulun, Ishabiah, son of Obad; over Naphtali, Jeremoth, son of Ezra; the Ephraimites, Osha, son of Azahiah; over half the tribe of Manasseh, Joel, son of Pedaiah; over the half tribe of Manasseh in Gilead, Ida, son of Issachar; over Benjamin, Jezazel, son of Abner; over Dan, Azarel, son of Joraham. These were the leaders of the tribes of Israel. David did not take the number of the men 20 years older or less, because the Lord had a problem to make Israel as numerous as the stars in the sky. Joab, son of Zerah, began to count the men, but did not finish. God's wrath came on Israel on account of the numbering, and the numbering was not entered in the book of Annals of King David. The king's overseer, Azmaveth, son of Eliad, was in charge of royal storehouses. Jonathan, son of Uzzah, was in charge of the storehouse in the outlying district, in the towns, the village, and the watchtowers. Ezra, son of Kabal, was in charge of workers who farmed the land. Shimei, the Ramathite, was in charge of the vineyards. Zadib, the Shipmite, was in charge of the produce of vineyards for the wine vats. Bahana Bahana, the Geradite, was in charge of the olives and sycamore fig trees in the western foothills. Joash was in charge of the supplies of olive oil. Shatara, the Shoronite, was in charge of Hergreza as Sharon. Shaphath, son of Adalai, was in charge of the herd in the villages. Obel, the Ishmaelite, was in charge of the camels. Joadai, the Marathite, was in charge of the donkeys. Jezai, the Gerite, was in charge of the flocks. All these were the officials in charge of King David's property. Jonathan, David's uncle, was a counselorman in sight of a scribe. Jalai, son of Kamani, took care of the king's sons. The Athophel was the king's counselor. Hashiah, the Achrite, was the king's confidant. The Aphathel was succeeded by Joadai, son of Benai, and Abathar. Joab was the commander of the royal army. David's plan for the temple. So we're on to chapter 28 right now. So let me grab some more water. So what's that hat? That hat was like making me hot. All right. So as you can see, again, this is what was continuing to go on during the time period of David running the kingdom at the time. And David was probably one of the best kings in this whole time frame, because David just did everything that the Lord had wanted him to do. And David is spoken about throughout the whole Bible. David was probably one of the best prophets in the entire Bible besides Jesus Christ. And that's the way I look at it, because if David's name comes up multiple times, like literally, like I'm ahead, and David's name comes up in Psalms a bunch of times. David's name comes up in Psalms. David's name comes up in where else does David's name come up in? Proverbs, I think his name comes up in. It's amazing how many times his name comes up in the Bible, just because he was that great of a prophet compared to like all the other ones. And that's why David's so talked about in the Bible here. So all right. David's plan for the temple. David plans for the temple. Chapter 28. David summoned all the officials of Israel to assemble at Jerusalem, the officers over the tribes, the commanders of the division in the service of the king, the commanders of the thousands and commanders of the hundreds, and the officials in charge of all the property and livestock belonging to the king and his son. Together the palace officials, the warriors, and all the brave fighting men. King David rose to his feet and said, "Listen to me, my fellow Israelites, my people. I had it in my heart to build a house as a place of rest for the ark of the covenant of the Lord. For the footstools of God, I made plans to build it. But God said to me, you are not to build a house for my name, because you are a warrior and you have shed blood. Yet the Lord of God, the Lord, the God of Israel, chose me for my whole family to be king over Israel. Forever, he chose Judah as a leader, and from the tribe of Judah, he chose my family. And from my father's son, he was pleased to make me king over all Israel, all of my sons, and the Lord has given me many. He has chosen my son Solomon to sit on the throne of the kingdom of the Lord of Israel. He said to me, Solomon, your son is the one who will build my house and my courts, for I have chosen him to be my son, and I will be his father. I will establish his kingdom forever if he is unswerving in carrying out my command and law as is being done at this time. So now I charge you in the sight of all Israel and the assembly of the Lord in the hearing of God. Be careful to follow all the commands of the Lord your God, that you may possess the good land and pass it on as an inheritance to your descendants, forever. And you, my son Solomon, acknowledge the God of your father and serve him with wholehearted devotion and with a willing mind, for the Lord searches every heart and understanding every desire and every thought. If you seek him, he will be found by you, but if you forsake him, he will reject you forever. Consider now, for the Lord has chosen you to build a house as a sanctuary. Be strong and do the work. Then David gave his son Solomon plans for the practico of the temple. It is its building, its storeroom, and its upper part, its inner room, and the place of atonement. He gave him the plans of all that the Spirit had put in his mind, of course, of the temple of the Lord, and all the surrounding rooms, for the treasures of the temple of God, and for the treasures for the dedicated things. He gave him instructions for the division of the priests and the Levites, and for all the work of the serving in the temple of the Lord, as well as for all the articles to be used in its service. He designated the weight of gold for all the gold articles to be used in various kinds of service, and weight of silver, and all the silver articles to be used in various kinds of service. The weight of gold for the gold lampstand, their lamps with the weight for their lampstands and its lamps, and the weight of the silver for each lampstand, its lamps according to the use of each lampstand. The weight of gold for each table for consecrated bread, the weight of silver for the silver tables, the weight of pure gold for the forks, sprinkling bowls and pitchers, the weight of gold for each gold dish, the weight of silver for each silver dish, and the weight of redefined gold for the altar of incense. He also gave him the plan for the chariot that is in the cherubim of gold, that spreads their wings and overshadows the ark of the covenant of the Lord. All this time, David said, I have in writing, as a result of the Lord's hands on me, and he enabled me to understand all the details of the plan. David also said to Solomon his son, be strong and courageous and do the work. Do not be afraid or discouraged, for the Lord God, my God, is with you. He will not fail you or forsake you until all the work of the service of the temple of the Lord is finished. The division of the priests and the Levites are ready for all the work on the temple of God, and very willing, and every willing person skilled in any craft will help you in all the work. The officials and all the people will obey your every command. So we're on the last chapter right now. I want to see what time it is because I want to see how far okay, so we're not doing too bad. All right, let's just get a move on. So David just built the temple, and he chose to put Solomon in his chair, his throne next. So gifts for building the temple, chapter 29. Then King David said to the whole assembly, "My son Solomon, the one whom God has chosen, is young and inexperienced. The task is great because the palatal structure is not for man, but for the Lord God. With all my resources, I have provided for the temple, my God, gold for gold work, silver for the silver, bronze for the bronze, iron for the iron, and wood for the wood, as well as onyx. For the setting turquoise stones of various colors and all kinds of fine stones and marble, all of these in large quantities, besides in my devotion to the temple of my God. I now give my personal treasures of gold and silver to the temple of my God. Over and above everything, I have proved for this holy temple 3,000 talents of gold orf, and 7,000 talents of redefined silver for the overlaying of the walls of the building. For gold work and the silver work, and for all the work to be done by the craftsman, now who is willing to consecrate themselves to the Lord today. Then the leaders of the families, the officers of the tribe of Israel, and the commanders of thousands, and the commanders of hundreds, and the officials in charge of the king's work, gave willingly. They gave towards the work on the temple of God 5,000 talents and 10,000 derricks of gold, 10,000 talents of silver, 18,000 talents of bronze, and 100,000 talents of iron. Anyone who had precious stones gave them the treasury of the temple of the Lord. In custody of Joeli the Geshronite, the people rejoiced at the willing response of their leader, for they had given freely wholeheartedly to the Lord. David the king also rejoiced greatly. David praised the Lord in the presence of the whole assembly, saying, "Praise to be the Lord, the God of our father Israel, from the everlasting to everlasting. Yours, Lord, is the greatness and the power and the glory and the majesty and the splendor. For everything in heaven and earth is yours. Yours, Lord, is the kingdom. You are exalted as head over all. Wealth and honor come from wealth and honor come from you. You are the ruler of all things in your hands, and strength and power to exalt and give strength to all." All right, so now, our God, we give you thanks and praise your glorious name. But who am I? Who are you? Who are my people, that we should be able to give as generously as this? Everything comes from you, and we have given you only what comes from you, your hand. We are foreigners and strangers in your sight, as well as our ancestors. Our days on earth are like a shadow without hope. Lord, our God, all the abundance that we have provided for building you a temple for your holy name comes from your hand, and all of it belongs to you. I know, my God, that you test the heart and are pleased with integrity. All these things I have given willingly with those honest intent. And now I have seen with joy how willingly your people who are here have given to you. Lord, the God of our father Abraham, Isaac, and Israel, keep these desires and thoughts in the heart of your people forever, and keep their hearts loyal to you, and give my son Solomon the wholehearted devotion to keep your commands, statutes, and decrees, and do everything to build the partial structure of which I have provided. Then David said to the whole assembly, praise the Lord your God. So they all praised the Lord, the God of their father. They bowed down, prostrating themselves before the Lord and the king. Solomon's acknowledged as king. The next day, they made the sacrifice to the Lord and presented burnt offerings to him, a 1,000 bulls, 1,000 rams, and 1,000 male lambs, together with their drink offerings and sacrifices in abundance for all Israel. They ate and drank with great joy in the presence of the Lord that day. They acknowledged Solomon, son of David, as king a second time, anointing him before the Lord to be ruler of Zodok, to be priest. So Solomon sat on the throne of the Lord as king in the place of his father David. He proposed, and all Israel obeyed him. All the officers and warriors, as well as all the kings, as well as all of King David's sons, pledged their submission to King Solomon. The Lord highly exalted Solomon in the sight of Israel, and bestowed on him royal splendor, such as no king over Israel ever had before. The death of David. David, son of Jesse, was king over Israel. He ruled over Israel 40 years, even in Hebron, and 33 in Jerusalem. He died at a good old age, and having enjoyed long life, wealth, and honor, his son Solomon succeeded him as king. And As for the events of David's reign, beginning to end, they are written in the records of Samuel the seer, the records of Nathan the prophet, and the records of Gad the seer, together the details of his reign and power and circumstances that surround him and Israel and the kingdoms of all their hands, the kingdoms of all the other land. Sorry. So David was king for. I used to listen to them. I haven't listened to Hoobastank in a long time. I know I think they're like a Christian band. I listen to a lot of like Christian, like I don't necessarily naturally listen to Christian music, but I fell into like listening to a lot of Christian music as of lately, and just I like listening to music that just praises God at this point. A bunch of bands like that are just very, very good for us to listen to in today's world, because if we really want to praise God, you want to like make sure you're listening to music that praises God and stuff like that. Praises our King. But yes, that was the reign of David. Now we are on to Second Chronicles. So this is all about Solomon's reign over the kingdom, which this one's a little bit longer. It has 36 chapters, and it explains how Jerusalem falls. Yeah, I'm almost up to where I started actually reading by myself. Esther. Yeah, I grew up listening to a lot of bands that had like religious, like, well, Christian bands, without even realizing it. There are so many back in the 90s. that was the thing about the music back in the 90s. There were so many Christian bands that came onto the scene that that's what made the music good in the way it was. Now, we don't have that. We don't have these bands. We don't have all these bands popping up anymore that's supportive Christianity or anything like that. We have a lot of bands that are like literally like pushing forth darker lyrics and going even darker into like you know, writing lyrics that are not power of word. That's why, like, when it comes to music, I mainly look at lyrics. Yes, the music can sound great. If the music sounds great, I'm all for it. But if it goes beyond music and it goes into like, if it goes into lyrics, okay, and I look at the lyrics and I'm just like, well, I have to read I really have to read the lyrics to get an understanding why I actually like the song. And normally when I like the song, it's because my spirit feels uplifted in some way and it feels good. And, once my spirit starts feeling good, I start feeling good. And that's what we want to do is we want to try to promote good music into the world. We don't want to promote, you know, rap has a tendency of like producing really, really bad lyrics. And that's why you don't see me listen to rap too much because there's certain people that do rap, but it's very limited people that actually write good rap songs that produce, good lyrics. And and that's why like that's kind of why the music industry is plagued right now. It's plagued by demonic forces. I know people laugh at that stuff when I say that, but that's the truth. It's music. It can seep its way into anything it wants to. And that's why I'm very picky about stuff I watch, stuff I read, or well, stuff I watch, stuff I listen to. You don't want to plague your body with like stuff promoting bad lyrics or like bad. You don't want to plague your spirit with like bad stuff. You don't want to do that to yourself because what's gonna happen? You're gonna turn into a mess. You're gonna turn into a mess, and you're gonna be angry about stuff all the time. And that's the truth. A lot of people used to like a lot of people used to make fun of me for my selection of music, and they still kind of do. People still kind of say stuff about my music, but I select the music I do because it has helped me tremendously, making me. Why is my hair shiny? Making my spirit come up from what's known as the dead. There's a thing my friend taught me a little while ago that you know, yeah, you can die as a human being, but your spirit can die too. If if people speak if people speak poorly to you, it can destroy your spirit. You know, and when you talk poorly about yourself, and you consistently talk poorly about yourself, you're like, oh, I'm not worth this, blah blah blah. Like you got to stop that. There is a form. It's not toxic. To say it's toxic positivity, no, it's not. My form of positivity is completely different. Okay, my form of positivity is yes, I believe in the Lord, and I believe God does great things for us. I believe the Lord is there to, you know, push us in the right direction and get us away from the enemy. But I will also say this: I believe, I believe that there's a way that we're all supposed to sit there and handle life, and we're supposed to sit there and I believe there's a way to talk to people that isn't talking down to them. When you're at so let's just put it this way. Here's an example. Okay, you work at a restaurant, and everybody in the restaurant is just trying to be a tough guy. You know, I'm not complaining about toxic masculinity because that's part of what makes a man a man. Of course, unfortunately, I do it sometimes too, but I try not to do it as often. I try not to be toxic masculinity, but sometimes you have to prove a valid point because in today's society, there's too much homosexuality going on in today's society. It's far greater than it used to be. And so toxic masculinity is there to separate the man from the homosexual. But what I am going to say is there is a way of being positive where you don't have to be. I've actually proved this to people that there are dudes out there that are in my Discord and everywhere that have insulted me, and they feel like they feel like they have to be this toxic masculine male, and you don't have to be toxic masculinity to prove a valid point. You can. There is a way of being positive and still being a manly positive, not a feminine positive. There is an actual thing like that, believe it or not. It's not toxic masculinity. It's positive masculinity, okay? When some homosexual is being weird with you on the internet, all you got to say to them is stop, or something like that. And if you keep going, just I don't know how I do it, but I do it sometimes. But it's called masculine positivity is what I'm going to call it for now, because there is an actual masculine positivity that comes from the Bible. The Bible teaches that. The Bible teaches positive masculinity. Okay, so a positive femininity. All right, this is something I picked up on. This is actually a real thing. But if you go into Song of Songs, you will find it right there. It separates the guy talking from the woman. Like example, let me read this off. It starts off with he. This is positive masculinity. Okay, this is how this works. Okay, he says to the girl this: "I have come into your garden, my sister, my bride. I have gathered myrrh with spices. I have eaten my honeycomb and my honey. I have drunk my wine and my milk." All right. Now she says back to him, "I slept with my heart was awake. Listen, my beloved is knocking open to me. My sister, my darling, my dove, my flawlessness. My head is drenched with dew. My hair with the dampness of my night. I have taken off my robe. I must put it on again. I have washed my feet." So basically, she's speaking in feminine format. The guy is speaking in male format, and this is where positive masculinity and positive femininity come from. There are two forms of it. Okay, so like example, positive masculinity can be you saying, you find a girl beautiful, you walk up to her, and you just simply say, "Hey, I think you're beautiful. I think you're gorgeous." You're not going over the limit with with toxic masculinity. Do you get what I'm saying here? You can be a positive masculine guy and not have to go overboard with it. Now, when you're doing toxic masculinity, that's when you dive deep and you talk about really sexual stuff about a woman, or like positive masculinity would be a form of you talking to your best friend and being like, "Yeah, bro, we did it." That would be positive masculinity. All right, like you cheer your bros on. All right. So when it comes to positive femininity, the girls will be cheering the girls on, and "Yeah, sister, we did it," or something like that. Like something. It's very hard to explain, but there's a form of positive masculinity and positive femininity. All right. There's a possibility for that, and we need to start being those two things in society instead of being toxic masculinity and toxic femininity, because that's pushing the boundaries. That's why we've dived into this deep, dark part of society. I believe there's a possibility of that, and the Bible explains how to be positive masculinity and positive femininity through the Bible. Just something I just felt like I had to say, and maybe that's something we need to work on in today's society, in today's world, because in today's world, I see a heck of a lot of people being toxic, but I don't see them ever being positive with their you know how do I want to say that? If they're a guy, I don't see too many guys doing positive masculinity. I don't see too many women doing positive femininity. Okay, now take the rap culture for example. It has some features of positive masculinity in it, or positive femininity, because there's a way to be positive and there's a way to be over the top with it. All right, you just have to know where to draw the lines. And this is not something I just thought up. Well, maybe it is something I thought up, and maybe it's something we should start learning. You know, that's why you pick up the Bible and you learn how to be a positive masculinity and positive femininity, because there's a possibility for it. There's only two kinds. Okay, so all I'm gonna say here is this: don't go overboard with what you say to people. Don't make people feel worse than you. And if you're doing that, well then I don't know what to tell you, because you're basically the problem in society, and you've created that problem. All right. So now, I guess I'll pray right now, and then I guess I'll have a few minutes and we'll get out of here. All right. Lord Jesus Christ, I'm praying you this evening to we need to start teaching people positive masculinity and positive femininity. I think there's a possibility for it. I think it would teach people to be a lot kinder. Lord, I just pray that people start picking up their Bibles and start learning it and stop being over the top with everything, Lord. I think being over the top has caused us to get into this area, and that's why I think you're upset with us. I think you know we can do better, and I think that's why if the big rapture's coming, well, that's why it's coming, because we can do better, Lord. Um, Please forgive me if I've done wrong in your eyes. Please forgive me. I'm trying my best, Lord. I know being a human being can be hard, especially in today's society, Lord. Also, please forgive anybody else that is with you and is trying to do the best they can in your eyes. There's a lot of Christians that that are trying to do right in your eyes, and it's just very, very hard, because we have a world that surrounds us full of really, really dangerous people, very, very toxic people that don't know how to remain in your light or accept that you even exist. So Lord, just please forgive us. Lord, also, I know some people are struggling to keep with your word. Oh, maybe they're not, but Lord, just try to keep them with you, Lord. Also, um, I guess I'm praying to you to give us some redemption, Lord. Give your Christian people redemption. We are trying our best, Lord, and if you need to, just reset the earth, reset us back to where we came from, reset us back to before the time, and teach us, lead us into new places, Lord. Lead us into a new time. Lord, I don't know what's going to happen, and if it still does, give them a sign. Let them know. And Lord, also, please protect Melanie Mack as always. Please bless her. Please bless Stan as always. Please protect him. Anybody else that reads your word during the day, please protect them. Don't let them lead astray. If they do lead astray, do something to prevent them from going astray, Lord. Lord, also, um, Lord, keep doing your work on my house. Has My house feels clean, like negative spirit wise, but Lord, keep pushing the negative spirits out. And Lord, just keep leading Jesus here to rebuke all these negative spirits, to keep them out of this house, Lord, and to keep them away from me. Lord, keep protecting me and keep protecting people that really need protected. In Jesus' name, amen. So, all right. So 1 second. We're good. That was a nice long prayer. That was very positive. But yeah, I think people need to start discovering more about how positive masculinity and positive femininity works and learn it from the Bible, I believe that's where we went wrong. People are no longer reading their Bibles and understanding how to be a human being, and that's why we are where we are today. That's why I'm talking about right now about like how people could pick up their Bibles and read it, and maybe that's why some of us are just built tougher than others because we're reading through the Bible and we can take a lot of like hits from people and metaphor hits like insulting stuff like that. I believe I believe the factor of it's like finally, you know, paying off for me at least. And I do believe that from here on out, I do believe that things are going to be changing. And I believe my prayers are very, very strong. So, right now, um, I can thank all of you, for stopping in here and just, keep praying, keep praying, keep praying, and just keep doing you. The Lord is always by you. And before I leave, I do need to show you guys something. That's right. So right now, it's right here. I have 2 episodes up right now. Um, Let me go back to my page. All right, and then hit my dashboard. So if you're on this, I suggest checking this out. I got a total of 47 views on it. It's going up. People are liking it so far. I got 2 episodes out. So if we click, man, if we click, I want to see. All right. So I have a whole story here in the work. So if you have a chance, please check this out. It's just a story about things that I've been, experiencing throughout my whole like time and all that, and just a little history of me and where I like kind of things I've been through. Now the drawing isn't the best. The drawing is gonna get better and increase. Trust me, I promise. Like the drawing is not the greatest right now, and it's gonna get better. It's gonna get a lot better. Um, so it's stuff that happened and I thought would be pretty cool. It's called the Holy Outsider, and you know, here's the link. If you can see it up top, I suggest everybody going there if you really want. I wish I could share it on YouTube, but YouTube's weird about links. So if you follow me anywhere else, please check this out. All right, so and that's it. I'm over 1 by 1 minute. Everybody that watched or stuck around, thank you very much. I'm appreciative of you, and God bless you. And I will be seeing you tomorrow morning for the next book. So, all right, have a good night. God